other series we have been going through where we talked about paganism and how, again, to refresh your memories, a while back I did a series on ancient paganism that you find in the Bible so you can understand what it's talking about when you see people worshiping in groves. What does that mean? Why did they do that? Okay. And then last week we talked about, and the last couple times we talked about Halloween, previous Wednesday. On Sunday we talked about paganism in the media, and today kind of combines a little bit of everything, I guess. It's paganism in the media, but we're talking about how ancient paganism today meets modern Christianity. Okay, and paganism never changes. Okay, it just has a new look maybe, but if you're able to understand its core roots, then you'll be able to pick it out anywhere, and you'll be able to identify it. Turn to Jeremiah chapter 10, if you would. Jeremiah chapter 10. And we've looked at these verses before, and so one of the reasons doing this intermittently, there's a lot of verses dealing with paganism that you see in the Old Testament and obviously the New Testament. And wherever they go, they're actually trying to win people out of this false idea, this false belief system. But to get us prepared and to be able to understand it and see it around you. And so in Jeremiah chapter 10, in verse 2, it says this, "Thus saith the Lord, learn not the way of the heathen, and be not dismayed at the signs of heaven, for the heathen are dismayed at them." So we see these verses over and over again because they're dealing with the same thing. So part of the reason is I'm not having this long, lengthy, at one time is because I feel like there's more displays. I'm showing you a lot of things that are taking place in modern times. And a lot of the same verses we're using over and over again because it deals with these things, but then I'm showing you these things and there's fewer Bible verses, it seems. I want to have a Bible study, and that's what we're doing, but I'm showing you a lot of things in the modern media so you can be aware of them. Here's another one in 1 Chronicles of the children of Issachar, which were men that had understanding of the times to know what Israel ought to do. Now, that phrase there, had understanding of the times. Do you understand the times in which you live? Are you aware that media, I'm not saying everywhere, that's part of the problem. It's hard to determine what is propaganda and what is truth. Okay, are you aware that media can be used to, if I may use a harsh word, brainwash, to lure people into and get them to believe certain things? It's a great tool. It's obviously a very effective tool to change people's hearts and mind, especially over time. Now think of this, certain kinds of music since the mid-60s. Everybody alive today, practically everybody alive, has been influenced by music that began in the 60s. That influences them as a culture. They raise children, and then those children are raised in a particular culture. Religion, Halloween, the things we'll be talking about today, have really increased a lot in the past few decades to where we're born in these times and we are a product of these times. So do you understand the times in which you live? That they are prior to the very last days, and therefore they will be getting worse. Do you suspect? Now, I'm not saying, fearfully, God's not given us a spirit of fear, so we don't have to look for everything under every rock, okay? It needs to be smart. Okay, so turn to 1 Timothy chapter 4. 1 Timothy chapter 4. Now, it helps to do research and to know where some of these things come from. 1 Timothy chapter 4 and verse 1 says, "Now the Spirit speaketh expressly that in the latter times some shall depart from the faith, giving heed to seducing spirits and doctrines of devils." Do you ever stop and think about, for instance, today we're going to be looking at something. Do you ever stop and think about how does a rabbit, I know this isn't the time of the year, so it's not on anyone's mind, but how does a rabbit lay eggs? You go, well, it doesn't. Platypuses do, but not rabbits. Okay, so platypus, if you're wondering what that is, go ahead and look it up. So anyway, so it's an Australian sort of a mammal. So how is it that then that got started? Why is there such a thing as an Easter bunny? Why is there colored eggs? How did this all get started? Why did this tradition get started? What does this have to do with Jesus? So if a person just stops and goes, wait a minute, let's just say a brand new Christian goes, that's not in the Bible, right? It can't be. then if it has nothing to do with Christ, then why am I doing it? Or why is it being done? So you start to see a divide between the Bible and the culture around you. Okay? Now, what is its effect on the people around me in society? Well, it's not like drastically dangerous. It's not, life-threatening, right? But, but it is a belief system, and it's a byproduct of something. Where did it come from? These are things worthy of asking. Okay, so here again, ancient paganism, modern paganism. It doesn't change. Something that took place thousands of years ago is regurgitated and reused over and over and over again because it works. So today, not just about this topic, but I don't usually have this short of a title or topic, but today we're going to be talking about the egg. Yes, the egg. Now, mixing this with modern media, we come to this weird, very weird picture of a woman being hauled in a fiberglass, I think, egg. Okay, everyone's familiar with because she's popular. And I almost don't like even mentioning a lot of these popular people's names because you people hear it all over the place. I'm not giving any of these people glory. What I'm showing is some of these popular people, because they're popular, they get attention. And because of the attention, they're able to advertise. And what are they advertising? A belief system. Understand, this isn't just acting. It's not just playful. People often think that, oh, when you're acting or it's some kind of a halftime show at the Super Bowl, that suddenly doing weird things is acceptable. Why? Ask, why are they doing these things? Are they trying to get a point across? So the Grammy Awards, sporting events are used to advertise these things. So Lady Gaga's red carpet arrival, it says here on this particular paragraph, at the Grammy Awards, showed up on the red carpet in a giant, semi-transparent egg. That's not weird. Carried down the carpet by 5 half-dressed attendees. Okay, you'll also notice it practically every time, paganism, things along those lines, there is immodesty. Is it a coincidence that the man possessed by Legion was naked? Why do you see that every time you see demonic stuff, you see association with nakedness? You do. Just look through the Bible, you'll see this. So a little close up, okay, just really, really weird. And of course I have to, black out half of the things on here because it's just so weird and it's immodest. But there it is, and she's inside there. Now, if you were to guess, if I were to ask you how many days you think she'd be in there, obviously more than one probably, because we've been looking at some of these things, what paganism talks about and it's associated with is something called esoteric. It means it's hidden meanings. They love to copy things in nature. They love to copy things that have already taken place. So do we know of anyone who was encapsulated or enclosed in something for a certain number of days that was really, really historical and that pagans love to capture or either mock or whatever? And if you guess 3 days, well then, yes. Lady Gaga says she was in the egg for 3 days. Why? Why 3 days? What does this represent? It's hard to know unless they come out and say it. But if you understand what paganism's pattern is, it's not hard to figure out, at least to narrow things down. Is it mockery? Probably. A ritual? Probably. A sort of reenactment or reference to Christ? Probably. It could be all three. And there's the star of the show in an egg. But see, people think, oh, it's her. She's able to do this. This is funny. This is cool because this is entertainment. Anyone else shows up anywhere in an egg, they'd be put in like a psych ward. But this is supposed to be okay because it's, but she's believing these things. She's in the egg for 3 days, getting ready for the Grammys. Now, the people that are carrying these things in, you close in on them and they have what at first thing like what do they have? I don't know, some damage to their skulls or something. No, these are actually, whether they're implants or something, I don't know. But when you read some paragraphs about the event, now we're not going too much into this, so this is just going to show you what's going on out there. The persons carrying in the womb-like vessel or egg were said to be in a transitional stage because their DNA needed to be desaturated and filled and would themselves be incubated backstage before the performance. What? It is interesting to note that they had what appeared to be bones protruding from their foreheads, what we would call horns. Yes, you heard me right. This person says horns. You cannot make this stuff up. Lady Gaga actually kept her own horns on for the entire night. So, yeah, these people come in with horns, and they actually are saying just weird stuff like this. Now, this was a music video. Prior to this, she comes out with this music video, and I'm not suggesting to watch it, okay? If you're women here, go for it, because it wouldn't be, I can't promote it. As soon as you see, like, whoa, okay, let's turn this off, because it's, as is usually with the case with Hollywood, very immodest. But portions of it are just extremely weird. I remember seeing this years ago when it came out, and it was on TV, and it was just some weird stuff. I'm like, what's that? And then they showed a portion of it, so I remember getting the gist of it. She claims to be a goddess coming out of an egg. And that her point was that the person was made this way. And what she's promoting is homosexuality. In other words, she's saying, and this is what they're saying, is that they were made this way. So why the egg? Well, the egg, I'm going to show you several different things. These are just historical things written about it. They're going to show you some words, some paragraphs, quotations from an expert on paganism, not somebody who was never in it but studied it. No, I'm talking about somebody who is in it and lives it. Okay, so the egg began as a sun symbol. In esotericism and ancient paganism, simple little things mean a lot. Okay, an egg has a yellow yolk and it's got a white surrounding. Okay, it's like the yellow of the sun and the corona around it. They believed these things. Anything with remotely unique or patterned symbolism, they jumped on it and believed this. So the egg began as a sun symbol. It's also a widespread symbol of renewal and life. It was a symbol of spring, the rejuvenation of the earth after winter. The person might go, I don't get it. Well, that's good, because then that means you're not pagan. But if you try to think like them, you'll understand, and not that you need to know that. Okay, so you don't need to understand this so much. We could talk about all of the different secret things and symbols and all these, but that doesn't help witnessing to somebody on their doorstep. Okay, what really helps is understanding your Bible and having the answers. But if I may say, I have talked to people that have talked to people, and paganism is on a rapid rise. It's one of the highest, more advancing, growing religions in the world. It really is. Okay, so if you're understanding some of these things, you can have a ready answer from the Bible and from history. So going on, the egg was a widely used pre-modern and pre-Christian symbol of fertility and restoration. European pagans viewed eggs as a symbol of the regeneration that comes from springtime. Okay. In the Roman era, they found a child from the Roman era, 2,000 years ago. In the hand of this infant was buried with it was an egg. Archaeologists think it represented the rebirth after the premature death of the baby. Now, often archaeologists aren't into religion. They think, no, but they're not religious, why should anybody else be? But they're actually catching up to these things. They're determining, after they found these over and over again, that the egg was put in their hand. I just recently read something. They're a grave digger in England. Paganism and Celtic Druid religion is really on the rise there, has been for decades. But he's a grave digger, he digs a hole, the next day he comes back and there's an egg on top of the mound. He says this happened like 40 or 50 times. Okay, why? Well, you'll know if you look at some of this. It's very closely associated with death, rebirth, etc., reincarnation. So there was in 7th century, he was an English monk and he was a historian. Bede was his name. It says the former pagans in England called April, or the month marking Jesus' resurrection, Ostermonad. In other words, Easter month of Oestre. Okay, Oestre he's talking about the Druids had a goddess called this. Oestre is variously depicted by scholars as a fertility goddess and a goddess of dawn and light. The dawn connection could explain a linguistic link between Oestre and the word east. It does. Okay, the Roman equivalent would be Venus, one of the brightest, well, it's a planet, so it comes up in the east and it's extremely bright. But that's equivalent to one of their false gods. So she emerges from the egg. Thankfully, we don't want her to suffocate or anything. I'm sure that had an air supply. But anyway, so she moves this back and she comes out and then she begins her ceremony or whatever. But we'll talk more about March 21st in a little bit. So according to some sources, the Easter Bunny first arrived in America in the 1700s with German immigrants who settled in Pennsylvania and transported their tradition of an egg-laying hare called Osterhase or Osterhaus. Their children made nests in which this creature could lay its colored eggs. Eventually, the custom spread across the United States and the fabled rabbit's Easter morning deliveries. Okay, it seems like just a fun little thing, and it's not like, you know, physically harmful, obviously. But again, the question is, if it's a belief system, where does it come from? And if it's a belief system that's not in the Bible, do we want our children practicing this? And we don't want to take it lightly, because anything that's apart from the Bible, especially if it has its roots in paganism, can develop into further problems down the road, which it is. It is right now. So in other words, in our modern society right now, paganism is becoming more and more of an issue when it wasn't 20 years ago or 20 years prior to that, but it's becoming worse and worse, and it's going to continue to get worse. So the rabbit multiplies very, very quickly. Therefore, it was worshipped as a sign of fertility. The egg is also a symbol of fertility. Somehow, these two got historically combined. So the rabbit and its ability to reproduce, which is worshipped by Gnostic pagans, and the egg as a symbol of renewal. Yes, a false born-again-ism and fertility, and the origin story of their false gods. Now we go back. Usually there's a lot of things that go back to these ancient pagan gods. The Egyptians believed that their false god, sun god Ra, was hatched from a cosmic egg, a world egg. The Babylonians believed that Astarte, or Ashtaroth was her name, the goddess of, I'll let you fill that in, love, came from the cosmic egg. Okay, do we remember who Ashtaroth was? Turn to 1 Samuel chapter 12. So we covered a lot of this in our series on ancient paganism. We talked about who she was. Was she actually a real person? Okay, well, if you remember, historically, more than likely she was the wife or mother, it's confusing, but it doesn't matter to pagans, of Nimrod, a biblical character. Not a biblical in the sense of good character, but he's a person that was in the Bible, a very bad person. You see, he was used by the devil to begin a religious system that is spread throughout the entire world. Think about this. Nimrod was alive about 2000 BC, and Nimrod has affected your life to this day. Yeah, we're talking 4,000 years later. Nimrod is still affecting your life every day. The things you see, the religion you came from, its roots, everything. He's behind it. Obviously, someone was behind him. He's just a front man. So in 1 Samuel chapter 12, and they cried unto the Lord and said, we have sinned because we have forsaken the Lord and have served Baalim and Ashtaroth. But now deliver us out of the hand of our enemies, and we will serve thee. This was the constant, the false god Baal, or the plural is Baalim, okay, and I think Ashtaroth, spelled differently if it's plural or singular, was there's a word called consort, again, either weird, okay. Again, some of these things I really try to look at the audience, see the age of the kids that are here, and hopefully it goes over their head because it's just so bizarre. In some cases, wife, some cases, mother. Weird. Okay, anyway, so this is what the ancient Jews had to constantly deal with, and how God had to constantly be taking them away from this. Turn to 1 Samuel chapter 31. We'll see that it was a Philistine goddess also. The whole region around them believed in this false goddess. And of course, she is the goddess of fertility. Baal was the god, the false god of thunder, like the modern false god of Thor. When I say modern, it's because he's coming back in the movies. He's getting all this attention. He was a Norse or European false god, similar to the Greeks' Zeus or the Italian Jupiter, and they're all the same. Okay, so in 1 Samuel 31, verse 8, and it came to pass in the morrow, when the Philistines came to strip the slain, that they found Saul and his 3 sons fallen in Mount Gilboa. And they cut off his head, stripped off his armor, and sent into the land of the Philistines round about to publish it in the house of their idols and among the people. And they put his armor in the house of Ashtaroth. They dedicate it to her. So Ashtaroth, same person as Semiramis, historical figure that was the wife or mother of Nimrod. Okay, Ashtaroth is another name of her, and depending on the region. Okay, Ashtaroth, sometimes husband, sometimes wife. Okay, Ishtar is a different name from the Assyrians, but the exact same characteristics, and also the Greeks. Okay, slightly different name. Same thing, sometimes husband. I should say Ashtaroth is sometimes the wife, sometimes the mother. I got those mixed up, obviously. Sometimes husband, sometimes wife. So Nimrod was, anyway, you know what I'm trying to say, hopefully. So these are some of the names. Astarte, Ishtar. Remember when the monk Bede said that the 7th and 8th century Druids worshipped a goddess, and her name was, third one there, Oestre. Sound pretty close to Easter? That's where the word east actually comes from. There's a star that comes out of the east, which was named after her, Ishtar, or the Romans called it Venus. It's not a star, it's a planet. Okay. According to Bede in his reckoning of time, the holiday was called after a goddess of theirs named Oestre, in whose honor feasts were celebrated in that month. And guess when it takes place? Spring, the spring festival. We said this, the Egyptians believed that Ra, their false god, was hatched from a cosmic egg. Babylonians believed that Astarte or Ashtaroth came from a cosmic egg. The Greeks believed that Phanes is born from a cosmic egg or world egg. This was another typical false religion that spread from the Tower of Babel. And so here's a quote, equated with Eros, false god of you-know-what, there it is again, from where we get the word erotic from. Depicted as a false deity emerging from a cosmic egg entwined with a serpent, the Orphic egg, which was the source of the universe. Okay? Now, wait a minute. Something that was all together as one, as an egg that started the universe. Someone came out and started the universe from an egg. Does that sound familiar? I mean, if I don't use the word egg, what does, big quotes, science say today about how the universe started? Exact same thing, they just don't call it an egg. Okay? So, exactly like the modern theory of the Big Bang and called science. Were not the ancient people believing in the exact same thing because they did not believe in the Creator God, that's why they thought that, and had to come up with their own creation story, but were simply putting it within the terms of their own source or focus, which was nature worship. And they looked around and saw the egg as giving birth, and they said, there's a cosmic egg, and that's how the universe came into existence. That sounds, this is basically ancient people focused on what they knew and put it into this context. That's exactly what modern, quote-unquote, scientists are doing. Why do they do that? Because they don't know God. So they come up with their own, which becomes this really, I'm not trying to mock, I'm just simply saying it becomes such a huge leap of faith to think that a all-knowing, perfect, and really smart creator made it all from nothing, as opposed to it made itself. That's Hinduism, it's Buddhism, it's paganism. Modern man says, well, we know it was science, but they came up with exactly the same thing. They just don't call it an egg. So again, think about it. The most basic and fundamental act of recreation, renewal, was looked at as a spiritual reenactment and ritual to honor the dead and honor reincarnation. And we're talking about the act of reproduction. It is elemental in all occult and satanic rituals because it defies marriage and worships fertility. This is the Easter egg, and the Easter bunny that children innocently go along with has to do with this because adults encourage it through nostalgia, or everybody else is doing it, which is peer pressure or culture, their own childhood memories, they have fun memories that's imprinted, and have no idea where it came from or what it means. Okay, but we're not supposed to learn the way of the heathen. Now this sounds harsh. Okay, I'm not saying that, you know, as Christians, we're never supposed to go off on somebody who's doing something innocently and they just, they don't know why it is or doing it. It's part of their culture. They're just having fun with it. But also understand that we as Christians, if we do something that is pagan in origin, then we are paying heed to it. We're actually promoting it and doing something that's promoting it, an act of fertility. If you go far enough back, to us, it's no longer innocent. We can't just do that. Okay, so here's the thing. People in the world can do what they want. You understand, when we got saved, we knew things were going to change. We're about to cross this bridge. We're not going back. We knew that whatever it is down the road, God shows us we're going to obey. And obeying God is not a chore. And so we should know that, well, if this is the way it is, then is this something that I am going to go along with just because a relative wants me to, just because a friend wants me to? And I realize these are challenges that we as Christians have to deal with. But how do we know this unless the information is given? That's why we're doing this tonight. So Lady Gaga, back to her. When her publicist was interviewed on the red carpet about what statement Lady Gaga was making about arriving in an egg, you think, well, this would be weird, but her publicist shared that Lady Gaga was birthing a new race. You see, paganism believes that mankind is evolving spiritually and physically and is going to come to the verge of another kind of human. And if there's anyone standing in the way of that, they're going to have to be eliminated. This is what's coming with the new age and the rapture tribulation period. This is what's coming in our future. So you see, this isn't something that's just, big deal. It's just, no, you're going to deal with it, or your children will. We will. We're dealing with it already. But this is going to come in a big, big, bad way. When paganism takes the gloves off, there's claws underneath, and it's pretty nasty. So we're explaining these things now. Okay, so her inspiration for this came from her song, Born This Way. Again, promoting the modernist belief that people are born as, you can read it there yourself. The vessel, womb, egg, incubator, as referred to by the publicist, is so that Lady Gaga can incubate for a certain point of time because we are birthing a new race tonight. That's not weird at all. Okay, the egg is a universal symbol. In other words, universal to ancient man, ancient paganism, as well as modern. So the universe started as an egg. Right. Well, again, not to mock paganism. If I'm talking to somebody who believes this, I've got to be kind and loving and caring, and because the Bible mentions that they oppose themselves, and we are supposed to be patient with them. Anyway, the egg, this is quoted by this guy here, Albert Pike, an expert on this because he was a practicer of it. He no doubt had taken part in some of the worst possible things. He was one of the head persons in the Masonic Lodge. The egg was a mystical symbol to the pagan religions of Egypt, Japan, Greece, Persia, Phoenicia, India, and Babylon. He writes the serpent entwined around the egg was a symbol common to the Indians, Egyptians, and Druids, which he reveres these people. It referred to the creation of the universe. A serpent with an egg in its mouth was a symbol of the universe containing within itself the germ of all things that the sun develops. He believes this stuff. So the property possessed by the serpent of casting its skin, this is how the esoteric person thinks. Hey, the serpent sheds its skin. The egg sheds its skin. Okay? Property possessed by the serpent, casting its skin, and apparently renewing its youth, made it an emblem of eternity and immortality. Thus we see an indication that the egg initially represented serpent worship, and by extension, Satan worship. Now, don't throw all your eggs away. We're just eating them, okay? So here's where, obviously sometimes people can go to, I'm not saying anyone here would, but to such a weird thing where they flip out and go, well, okay, they're misrepresenting. God created the egg. Pagans misconstrued it. They warped it into an act of creation and worship it. We don't have to. I just like them. I just eat them, that's all. Okay. So Albert Pike says this. He's an Illuminati and Masonic member. So here's some pictures. Well, you saw the one already. And there's another one on the left. If you remember back to our study on ancient paganism, remember what the crescent moon represents. The horns of the bull, which they worshipped, and the crescent moon, which they worshipped, which was the moon goddess. Again, all these nations did this exact same thing, and they believed it. And the that their false gods were hatched out of this egg, but to them they weren't false, they were real. Now, interesting, there is what's called the Serpent Mound in Ohio, and here's a particular drawing. If you notice in the upper left-hand corner, what looks like, well, obviously the shape of an egg, and what would be the mouth going over the egg. It's called Serpent Mound. It's in Peebles, Ohio, or near Ohio nearby there. So again, did ancient people worship the egg? Oh yeah, they did. You can see it in archaeology all over the place, which is obviously here. Now, how does this deal with modern media? Well, we already saw Lady Gaga, one of the most, she's known worldwide. Probably known, unfortunately, her name probably is known more than the name of Jesus Christ. Okay, so 2015 Rugby World Cup games in England. Switching subjects? Not really. Okay, so there's I somehow ran across this, and there's a promo video of it, where this young man, he's playing rugby, and he goes against all the rules and makes it better. Okay, remember what we talked about on Sunday? A glitch which was not anticipated by the creator is in, whether it's a video game or whether it's in creation, Adam and Eve, okay? This glitch makes it better, and the person who is in this video game wants to come out of this and rise up against his creator because he knows better than they do. Or see, in principle, this is exactly, goes back to Gnosticism. What the devil believes he is as a good guy, bringing information to Eve so she can become a god. So the young man goes against the rules, is enlightened, makes it better. The game's so much better now. It's a do as thou wilt, and he changed the game, and he improved the game. It's much more enjoyable this way. So here's a picture of the young man represented of this person who changed the game of rugby. But you'll notice on his shirt there's the skull and bones, and someone's, oh, it's just a, an innocent thing. Maybe it's just the logo of his team. When you see some of the weird, just really bizarre stuff going on, when they're trying to get something across, there's not just a symbol that means anything or nothing anymore. It's going to mean something. So if you understand secret society, there's one in particular. It's called the Skull and Bones. Okay, we've had several presidents a part of this secret society. Do you know that they take oaths that override the United States Constitution? And if they are bought out within this secret society, they are owned. They're going to get at whatever they want. The usual wine women song, blah, 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 everything they want. But you're going to do what we tell you to do. That's exactly what takes place. Okay, so anyway, you'll see it there. So he takes the rugby ball, which is, let's call it if we're going to look at paganism, let's call it a seed. He kicks it, goes up, way up into the atmosphere. It blocks out the sun. I'm sure there's some kind of a symbolism there. But it comes down, and then you see it going into the stadium. Now, introducing something else. There's something called the Ben stone in Egypt. The Egyptians worshipped a stone they believed was a meteorite that came from the sky, and it is said that they shaped it into a conical or pyramidal shape and placed it upon the top of an obelisk. Okay, you know what an obelisk is? Washington Monument. Okay, an obelisk. I'll show you one here in a little bit. Okay, I'm going to try to phrase this in such a way that adults will know what I'm talking about. That obelisk is a symbol of fertility. Do you understand what I mean? Imply the worst? Okay, that's what the Egyptians believed. Okay, it starts with a PH, A, L, okay, anyway. Okay, trying not to draw attention to it, but look, we're adults here. This is what we're learning. This is what they believed. And this is strangely what's coming back. Okay, and so the obelisk, tall pillar, and the Ben was a symbol of a seed at the top of that. Okay, so the Ben stone comes down from the sky as a seed. It also represents, remember, we talked about the phoenix, the bird that comes back to life, rebirth and reincarnation. Okay, so is that what they're trying to get across? Don't know. Or is it another reference to, I saw a star fall from heaven? unto the earth, and to him was given the key of the bottomless pit. What we see about to come out of this is the bottomless pit. We'll see here in a little bit. So anyhow, I'll try to make this quick. Here's the picture of the Ben stone, and they believe it has to do with the phoenix comes crashing down in a ball of flames, just like the Ben stone came down from the sky and explodes and is born again, the pagan born again, into the phoenix, which they worshipped. So here's the picture of the obelisk, and the Ben, that's the right-hand corner there, would be what is at the very, very top. So this is what they believe, all this esoteric stuff that just merges together. So secret societies, the Skull and Bones, the Masons believe in the seed of the serpent lineage coming down from Satan, the serpent. And they believe it's in certain humans, and will be coming back someday. The seed lands in the womb of the stadium, or the seed in the womb, or an egg in the nest, an egg of the phoenix in the nest. Okay, so there's the phoenix coming down, or maybe it's the star, Satan, coming down from the sky, falling, and it comes down, and there it is. And obviously this is much bigger, but there is the seed, the ball that the young man kicked, went up, came down, and now it's represented as planting in the womb or in this nest, and it's lodged in the earth. But what happens next is just bizarre. Okay, those octagonal or hexagonal shapes start rising up, and it's hard to see here, but the lighter portion are men pushing it up. Here's a close-up, and these are called giants. Giants are coming out of the gates or portals from the underworld. From hell? What is this? Come on, it's just, Dave, you're just jumping to conclusions, reading into things just a little too much. All this is just kind of a funny, just weird little entertainment. Not when you start adding up all these pagan things and they all come together. So these giants are coming out, and then they rise up, and then they stretch out, and then the shell comes off the egg, and it peels. And then the song, of course, was World and Union, as in future one world, new order. Okay. So anyway, just a lot of weirdness, but not to them. This is because it's what they believe. Now, we're out of time, but the Bible mentions the word Easter. It does. Okay? We won't turn there, but if you want to remember, you want to look this up on your own, it's later. It's in Acts chapter 12. Okay? Wait a minute. Now, think of this. Let me ask you this. What Easter is it mentioning? Is it the modern, what Catholics and Protestants would call Easter, which is Jesus, they think, resurrection? Or is it the pagan Easter? Okay? Let you study that out. It mentions, just remember this, on Passover, okay, there's a feast called the Feast of Unleavened Bread. Here's how it works. The Passover is on this day, and that's the first day, 7 days of unleavened bread. And when you read that passage, they're in the midst of the unleavened bread, and he's waiting for Easter. Okay, if you have any questions, shoot me a text. If you got to know, give me a call. Shoot me a text. We'll go over that or something. But anyway, we'll save this for another time. Okay, let's close in prayer. We thank you, Lord, for your goodness. Thank you for all you do for us, and for exposing these things and helping us to understand them. Help us to use this in the proper, appropriate way to help people. In Jesus'